Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio, the effort was to get 10,000 kids ice fishing for the first time.
Covering all that in that lesson plan will really get kids conscious about all these topics and really help them make great decisions when they finally do get to the lake.
And they can use those particular skills to take their families out.
Broadcasting on the Sporting Journal Radio Network, wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube.
Fish on right now.
Well, we're here at the 2024 Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. And our guest now is Jeremy Smith. I fish, I hunt, and always will.
It's just to look out for your everyday hunter, angler, and trapper that's out there.
A Fish Hunt Forever production. This is Sporting Journal Radio.
That's right. Welcome to the show. I'm Bret Amundson. Thank you for tuning in on the radio network by demand, Sporting Journal Radio, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify. That's Dan Amundson over there as always. Dan, what's up?
What's going on? It's not Christmas anymore. It's after Christmas.
I guess it is.
For people to understand that.
So Happy New Year.
So we can understand that? Yeah, sure. Happy New Year.
It's been a good year, hey?
Is this going to be our last show before the end of the year?
I'd have to look at a calendar. It's too many.
Yeah, probably. Well, that's weird. We planned that poorly.
Yeah. So real quick, Dan, your end of the year recap for us that you haven't prepared for.
I went hunting a lot. I went fishing a lot.
There you go. Sounds like a good year to me.
We probably talked about it all right here. So.
Yeah. So if you want a year-end recap from us, like everybody else does this time of year, just watch all our shows.
All 52 of them for the year. Then you'll get a year recap.
It's only 5,200 hours of your time. No problem. No big deal.
What?
An hour plus times 52.
Yep.
So 52 hours.
Yeah, you said 5,200 hours.
Oh, yeah. Math and stuff. Numbers.
Huh. Well, good thing we're talking about schools and kids today. Maybe.
I should probably go back to school. Yeah. And, so we're going to talk about learning and stuff. What'd you say?
Transitions. You like that?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Organic.
It's very good. Segues, they call them in the biz.
Well, I don't. I call them transitions.
Same thing. Karl Erickson and Ray Ruiz going to be joining us this week to talk about an effort to get more kids into the outdoors and onto the ice to do some ice fishing for the first time. Also, Joe Henry will be back to talk about Lake of the Woods and what it's like up there this time of year. But first, Dan, who are the sponsors this week on the show?
The official truck sponsor of Fish Hunt Forever and Sporting Journal Radio is Inver Grove Toyota. When looking for your new rig, head to Inver Grove Toyota. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world. Plan a trip for this winter at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. OnX Hunt. See private land boundaries, recent imagery, offline maps, and Minnesota-specific hunt layers. Download the onX Hunt app today. Tazen Lake Lodge. Catch world record lake trout and the biggest pike you've ever seen in your life at Saskatchewan's Tazen Lake. Learn more at TazenLake.com. Devils Lake, North Dakota. Catch it all at Devils Lake. Prairie Sportsman, we are filming the new season right now, and it'll be starting up pretty quick, but you can watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. Haybill Heights Campground and Resort on Devil's Lake. Fish Devil's Lake out of a snow bear this winter. Learn more at haybillheights.com. And Guardian Eagle Resort. Go fish the Ontario waters of Guardian Eagle Resort this summer. Fly directly from the Twin Cities. You can learn more about that at guardianeagle.com.
And Guardian Eagle Resort sponsors the first segment of this week's show, which features Karl Erickson and Ray Ruiz. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, doing good. Thanks for having us.
Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, Ray, of course. And Karl, welcome to the show for the first time. Karl, you and I, and probably Dan, spoke at the DNR Roundtable about a year ago, and you told us about this plan that you had. And I apologize it's taking this long to have you on. We're glad to have you on it now. And when we talked about having you on here, and I was talking to Ray about this, the effort was to get 10,000 kids ice fishing for the first time with urban ice anglers. But after talking to you a little bit more before the show, you're doing so much more than that to get not just kids into the outdoors, into outdoor recreation, but also teaching them some life skills that will not only allow them to do more in the outdoors, but be more handy, learn about tools, but also prepare for maybe some jobs down the line. And I want to talk about all of that. So I appreciate you coming on. First of all, you're also a veteran, so I want to say thank you for your service right off the bat, Karl. Thank you very much.
And thank you for. I'm lucky to be here. There's guys that aren't here today because I'm here, so I always think about them and everything I do and go forward that way. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's good. There's a lot of good we can do when we have a pulse, you know.
Absolutely. And you were with the Minnesota National Guard, and you were a teacher for a while, it sounds like, as well?
Yeah, so I've been post-service, went to school in the GI Bill, and went to school in the physical education and health education at Concordia University, and then exited that program, and then kind of got picked up at a charter school to teach physical education in St. Paul. And I did that for 6 years. And then just over 2 years ago, I made a transition to Elpis Enterprises in St. Paul, which is a workforce development and job training program for homeless, impacted, and at-risk young adults. And so in my shop there, in my program, I'm teaching some of these young adults some career skills around woodworking and using table saws and routers and drill presses and miter saws and all these different things to increase their career skill capacity and build their resume out so that I can find them the career landing spot of their choice in something in a trade level thing, or because we work with a lot of youth in our programs, maybe it's in child care education.
That's awesome. So what is Elpis? How long has that been around, and how did the road to this organization, how did that come about for you?
Well, so Elpis has been around for over 20 years. I met their director, Paul Ramsauer, probably 6-7 years ago. I was looking for some scrap wood to do something, and they were moving buildings, and so they got me some wood. But at Elpis, we have several fence contractors, and we're always looking for more. And we take their old throwaway, either cut off cedar fence boards from a fence contractor's short fence that they had a foot cut off or a 2 foot cut off, or we take tear out old fences that are slated to go to a landfill, and we take those boards and use those as a skill builder in our shop, where I'm teaching the interns how to fabricate all these bird feeder kits and birdhouse kits. And then we currently, at a pace, we run about 180 youth woodworking workshops all over the state, and mainly in the cities, but for about 8,000 youth somewhere in the community.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that big. So how does that, so, I mean, if you're based in St. Paul, but there's kids in other places participating, do they have satellite offices somewhere, or how is that run through the county, or how does that work?
So at Elpis, we have a crew and that are on my woodworking team, and we get in the van or get in the truck. We load all our jigs, all of our tubs of kits, and we take our hammers and we just travel all over the place.
Oh, that's cool.
2 years ago, I emailed over 400 teachers in the Twin Cities in 4th grade about whether they'd like a free backyard bird watching and woodworking workshop where kids in the classrooms learn just about the basics of backyard birds and how they support our food chains with pollination, pest control, seed dispersal, and fertilization. And then they get to put hammer to nail and build a bird feeder kit to take home with a bag of seed. And so in 2 years, we've been to 120 schools and had over 9,200 students in 4th grade succeed at learning about backyard birds and woodworking in their classrooms.
Wow, that's awesome. So was that something that Elpis was doing, or when you started there, did you say, hey, I want to do this and get people into woodworking, but also give them an opportunity to do something in the outdoors at the same time?
Well, Elpis, they'd always kind of had the workshop format. A lot of their programming in the past historically was in park and rec programs or out of school time programs or going to festivals and events, but never really had a lot of traction in classrooms and schools. But being a former educator, I kind of knew what teachers are looking for. I thought the workshop looked great, and I was like, let's just add some bird lesson into it so that there's a little bit of knowledge behind the project, and then also let the kids know that, hey, you're taking wood and keeping it from going to a landfill. This is an eco-friendly project too. So I've kind of just expanded the programming quite a bit into the classrooms, and it's keeping us really, really busy.
All right. And this isn't the first time that you've been trying to get kids into the outdoors. I want to talk about all of it, including getting them out ice fishing as well. Let's bring in Ray real quick. Ray Ruiz is with Baztec. And of course, Ray and I have done a bunch of things together, filming and glow trips and things like that. And Ray, for our listeners, our viewers, just tell everybody what Baztec is.
Yeah. Again, Bret, Dan and Bret, thanks for having us Karl and I on. Baztec is a community outreach fishing organization, and what we do is we partner with local state agencies, so the Minnesota DNR, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, counties among the states, and other organizations that hire us to put on and facilitate community outreach fishing programs. And every program is different that we do. That's what makes us incredibly unique. And on top of that, we have staff that speak different languages. So that makes us even more unique. So a lot of the fishing education, like Karl was talking about, that we do at Baztec, is disseminated in Spanish. We've also done it in Quran and Hmong. So yeah, it's that's basically the heart and soul of what we do. We do community outreach fishing programs. We work with kids, at-risk youth. We do veteran programs. We work with Sierra Club, where we have an ice fishing event coming up with them. We work with a lot of like single parents. I mean, you name it. We pretty much basically serve whoever we can, and whoever needs our help. So that's what we do, and we're really proud of it. Currently, we're doing about, I believe, from the numbers that we put together from all the events we did last year, we're at about close to 75 events. That's what we did last year. We could have done a lot more, but as you guys know, the ice wasn't the best.
Yeah, it was terrible.
So it was terrible. And even the year before that, it was really bad too. So, and
I want to congratulate you, Ray, for you're being awarded some grant money from LCCMR, or some funding from LCCMR, which is awesome. LCCMR, of course, was on the ballot this year. Everybody was voting for it and overwhelmingly approved it. And it's from it's proceeds from the Minnesota Lottery, which we also benefit with Prairie Sportsman. So congratulations. Welcome to the LCCMR arena, and good luck with all of that. And Ray, Dan, Ray taught me how to talk about fishing in Spanish, and I tried to get him to teach me how to swear when you miss a muskie on a topwater in Spanish, but he wouldn't teach me that.
Can we get away with that in broadcast?
I don't know, probably not.
You guys can edit. You guys can edit that stuff.
That's too much. That's more work for me.
That's right. All right, Ray Ruiz and Karl Erickson joining us. They're teaming up to introduce ice fishing to a bunch of people that haven't done it. 10,000 kids is their goal that have never ice fished before, and we'll talk about how they're going to do that when we come back here on Sporting Journal Radio. This segment is brought to you by Guardian Eagle Resort. Come fish the Ontario waters of Guardian Eagle. Bring the family and fish for walleyes and pike on 75,000 acres of private water, and they've got their own runway, so you can fly direct from Minneapolis, from Blaine, I guess, actually, and land right at their concrete runway, right at the lodge. Dan and I did it last year. See our video on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel, or learn more at guardianeagle.com.
The Minnesota Sportsman Show is back January 17th to the 19th, now at Canterbury Park in Shakopee. Visit hunting and fishing resorts from the Midwest to Canada, Great Lakes charters to African safaris. Plan your vacation right at the show. There's fishing gear and the latest fishing electronics. Fishing seminars by Tom Wynn and Joe Henry. The Sportsman Show, January 17th through the 19th at Canterbury Park with free parking. Details at mnresortshow.com. A Sonenko production.
We're back, Sporting Journal Radio. I'm Bret Amundson, along with Dan Amundson, and our guests right now, Ray Ruiz from Baztec, and also Karl Erickson from Urban Ice Anglers. Guys, thanks for coming on. Karl, you guys are teaming up to do something that's, I think, is unprecedented. I think it's great to, everybody talks about introducing people to the outdoors, but to have a goal to bring 10,000 kids out ice fishing for the first time is outstanding. And to do it in a short amount of time, like one winter, and at least this year we're building ice early. So like last year would have been tough, I think, with the ice conditions that we had. This is something like introducing kids or bringing kids out fishing for the first time. This is something that has been an effort of yours for quite a while, isn't it?
On my side, yeah. I mean, I've been working in a variety of youth program roles, from Minneapolis parks, Minneapolis schools, teaching, childcare, and I've kind of had fishing as a part of wherever I could fit it into the program. I've been bringing it outside of an office job here and there, but kids have really liked it. When I was teaching in St. Paul, I had written to the No Child Left Inside grant fund to buy the equipment for my school so I could run my students, who at the time were primarily Somali East African, out to the lake on Como Lake. And so right before the pandemic, I ran 500 my students out there. And then it was like at the very end of March, and then a couple weeks later, all the schools got shut down or end of February. And then in mid-March, they shut all the schools down because of COVID. But it was a real hit at the school. A lot of kids from my school had, going to a frozen lake might be like going to the moon, something that's not normal,
Yeah, what kind of reaction were you getting from some of these kids?
Well, some of the kids and even some of the staff, like, I don't know if I want to step on this lake, because it's like, is it thick enough or isn't? I'm not sure. And I mean, I guess that's a valuable life first thought. Like if you're not going to jump on that frozen lake, you're actually better than some kids because you're like thinking about safety. And that's one of the big topics that's going to be a part of this thing this winter.
So talk about that first experience being with some of those kids who had never done it before, just trying to get them out on the ice for the first time, and then to actually have them catch a fish. Like how are these kids reacting to that?
Oh man, they're losing their mind. I was in a fish house with this girl, and she was jigging, and there's something on the fish finder there, and I'm like, hey, just keep, and she'd get a bite and lift and miss, and lift and miss, and I was like, hey, just keep doing what you're doing. And then I stepped out of the fish house to look at something outside, and then all of a sudden a second later, she's screaming, I've got him, and she comes running out with a little bluegill on her fishing pole. And I mean, think about that. That's a core memory now. She'll never forget that, and that's the positive experience that we're really hoping to bring to all the kids this year.
Yeah, and why? I mean, that's got to be a great feeling for you. But why do you do it? What made you want to do something like this?
Well, I think it's for me coming home from Iraq in 2007. Not necessarily in the best right mind and headspace. I got invited out to go fishing, and somebody showed me the fish finder and the flip shack and all that stuff, and I was like. And I got into it, and I was like, I bought all the gear, and I'm like, man, this is a good experience. Like, I feel more relaxed. I'm having a good time catching stuff. I've got some dinner on the table. And so really getting a first introduction to ice fishing for kids, it's got to be around that. Where you get rid of some of the discomfort of being out. Like, I don't want kids sitting on a bucket in the wind waiting on a bobber. I want them in a heated fish house, maybe looking at an underwater camera, using a fish finder. Like, use all the technology that the rest of us out there are already using. Because if your first positive experience is super positive, you're going to want to seek more opportunities like that, and you're going to maybe pester your parents or look into other ways to get more experiences like that. That's what I want kids to get and walk away with, is that.
So where did the idea to bring 10,000 kids out ice fishing for the first time come from?
Well, I started when I was teaching. I was running. I had a class set, so I was running 25 kids. On the hour, rotating 5 times a day, so I get 100, 125 kids out of a day, and it would be some days it was just me, and that was difficult because I'm trying to hop into each of these houses and keep these kids from breaking stuff and losing things. But so that's kind of the format where I kind of learned that this does work if I bring in a few other volunteers. And I started working with the actually Matt Wilkie and the Ardent Outdoor Group. They're one of the groups that's going to be partnering up with me and Ray too. So I don't want to overlook them. They were helping me at Higher Ground and getting the kids some extra help on the lake. And but so you start looking at that format, right? So if I've got a crew holding down one class, and let's say Matt's holding down a class and Ray Ruiz and his team is holding down another class, and then I have the St. Paul Police Cadets holding down another class in some other houses. If we have 4 classes out there on the lake at one time, that's maybe 100 kids. And if we get those schools to rotate that 100 every hour, and we do that 4 or 5 times in a day, that's going to be 400 or 500 kids that get the experience that specific day. As long as we have the firepower and the people out there, it's very doable. And then if you have 400 kids in a day or 500, and you do that 20 days or maybe 25 days, the math is there. It's just a matter of, can we get enough schools to commit to coming and bringing all the people?
Yeah, I guess when you break it down like that, it doesn't sound like an insurmountable task, because at first when you say, hey, I want to bring 10,000 kids out on the ice for the first time, what? Huh? Like, how are you going to do that? And just like, I'm just picturing herding cats, right? Like, it just sounds like it'd be hard. Because I mean, like, what kind of ages are you talking about here?
These are going to primarily be 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. There might be some high schoolers involved, but primarily elementary age. And not the little elementary. 4th grade I found with the bird feeder project, swinging hammers and making those decisions and working out. I like that grade level as a starting point. There might be some 3rd graders that get out there, but those kids are pretty conscious of what they're doing and have a good time.
Have schools and organizations been receptive to the idea?
Well, so with the Bird Watchers program, when I surveyed some of the 4th graders all over the Twin Cities, in every community, it seemed that 70 to 90% of the 4th graders had never gotten the chance to go ice fishing before. And then when the same question about would they like to get a field trip like that, 85, 90% of the kids said yes. But then more importantly, when I surveyed teachers, all these teachers all over the cities, 90% were interested in getting that opportunity for their kids if it was only 1 hour and it didn't cost anything, and everybody was in a heated fish house in an organized and safe manner. And so because of that feedback from those teachers, I wrote to the DNR's No Child Left Inside grant fund to put together this 10,000 ice anglers project at Elpis this year. And so that's kind of why I was like, okay, so that once No Child Left Inside got behind it, I was like, all right, how many other partners do I got to bring in? How many other police departments, fire departments? There's a lot of other nonprofits that are doing some of these youth programming. And so for a few days this winter, we're going to partner with Future Anglers of Minnesota. They're a great group, does a bunch of great events for kids, and they have the gear. A lot of groups have the gear, but then can you find the manpower and the people to show up during the weekday? These are all weekday school day programs. And so it's not weekends when everyone else is available. So that's the challenge there. And that's kind of why I'm bringing in Ray, and that's why I'm bringing in Matt Wilkie and the Art and Outdoor group, because they're available.
Let me ask you this question, because I'd bet the first thing that comes up when you approach a school or an organization about, hey, I want to bring a bunch of kids out on the ice, particularly newcomers to the sport, maybe newcomers to Minnesota or winter or frozen lakes, and I bet safety comes up a lot. When it comes to safety, what's going to be a part of your program out there?
So I've been doing some of this recording and posting some of this stuff on Instagram on the Urban Ice Anglers handle, but there's going to be a pre-survey, there's going to be a pre-trip, pre-lesson quiz where kids, we gather information on, can they identify a bluegill? Can they identify a crappie? Can they identify some of the hazards with ice fishing? And then I'm going to have a pretty comprehensive 20-minute to 30-minute video that covers everything. I mean, when you're talking going ice fishing, it starts at the front door. Are you coming out with hats and mittens and snow pants? That's the first thing. We want to avoid cold weather injuries. And then, okay, you're good for that. Now we got to the lake. What's our next step? And so I partnered with Nicole Biaggi at the Minnesota DNR for a couple videos on ice safety and checking with a spud bar and an auger, and then talking about when there's moving water and culverts and things like that, and maybe there's white ice, and there's a video right there. So getting them thinking about ice safety, so then they're conscious about not running onto a frozen lake without an adult or a partner. And so then you go, okay, so now you're on the ice. Now you got to watch how you walk. Are you walking on slippery ice? Or are you stepping in holes? Pay attention to where you're going. That's another safety thing. And then when you enter a fish house, the first thing you want to walk into that fish house door is you want to identify where the heater is and the holes, so that you're not just running in there willy-nilly and running into a heater and burning your leg off and talk. So that's some of the safety stuff. And then hook safety is another one, and then carbon monoxide in the fish house. It's got to be a discussion for a kid, because they got to know that heater is gonna, if they don't aerate, or if you don't cycle that air out of that fish house, you get so covering all of that in that lesson plan will really get kids conscious about all these topics and really help them make great decisions when they finally do get to the lake.
I think that's an important part of it, that you're just not taking kids fishing and having them be on the ice for the first time, or maybe catch their first fish through the ice, but actually teaching the safety elements to it and every aspect to it.
Well, especially with where we live, kids are out of school and you got a pond in the backyard. They want to run on the ice. We just saw this in Woodbury a couple weeks ago. Someone went through the ice, and most people just don't get that ice safety knowledge. So even if they're not fishing all the time on the ice, that's a huge life skill if you're going to live in Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We got to take a quick break. Ray, I want to ask why you got involved as well, and what you're doing out there to introduce more people to the outdoors coming up in just a little bit. This segment brought to you by Inver Grove Toyota. Dealer discounts and customer cash deals on new 24 and 25 Tundras and other Toyota vehicles are available now at Inver Grove Toyota, 494 in Robert Street, Inver Grove Heights, Minnesota. We also have a deal for you, too, for our listeners and viewers here. Just go to invergrovetoyota.com/FHF for Fish Hunt Forever at FHF, and you will save additional money on your trade-in on a new vehicle or used vehicle at Inver Grove Toyota. Find out more at invergrovetoyota.com/FHF.
Sick of eating tag soup? It's time to own your odds this fall with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. Now you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, optimal win for each stand, tracks, and much more. All at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code SJR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your membership. That's code SJR20. It doesn't get much better than fresh perch and fresh walleye. If you're looking for an exciting winter fishing destination, come to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort is on the ice with a fleet of snow bears, keeping you mobile and warm so you can stay on the roaming schools of fish. Haybale Heights on the east end of Devil's Lake has knowledgeable guides, comfortable cabins, and their own lake access, making your trip as successful and stress-free as possible. To book your trip, go to haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com.
All right, we're back, Sporting Journal Radio. I'm Bret Amundson, along with Dan Amundson. Our guests right now are Karl Erickson and Ray Ruiz. And this segment brought to you by Tazin Lake Lodge. Ray, we're talking about the effort to get 10,000 new kids ice fishing this winter, and you teamed up with Urban Ice Anglers, and I guess this Ardent Outdoor Group is part of the mix too. We should mention them. Why did Karl approach you, or how did this come about? And it was probably an easy decision for you. This ties in right with what you do with Baztec, doesn't it?
It does. What's funny is I met Karl at my time when I was at the DNR, and I was at the Commissioners Roundtable, and this is actually really funny because I'm kind of new at the DNR. It was like my first year, and here comes this dude, and he's like, "Hey man, are you Ray Ruiz?" And I'm like, and I looked at myself like, "Yeah, I think I am." And he's like, "Hey man, I'm Karl Erickson," and he goes into the spiel, man, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Oh my God, I love this guy." He's like a lunatic and like a crazed man, so passionate. And I'm like, I love this guy. And he unpacked this incredible vision that he had. And I don't meet people like that. As an entrepreneur, like that's the only time you meet people like that, other entrepreneurs, which are crazy people. And when I met Karl, I was like, wow, he unpacked his story, his vision. Because this, to give Karl a lot of credit, man, he had this vision for a long time, and now it's become a reality because he worked out all the ironed out a lot of wrinkles. But this is 2017, 2018 when he approached me with this stuff, with this vision. And at the time, I was only doing open water programming and outreach programs. So when Karl approached me, I was like, man, this guy is awesome. Like he's like. I was like, yeah, I have to partner with this guy. This is great. And we had the same vision. We had the same mission. We had the same passion to serving others and folks, underserved, underrepresented people in the community. And I was like, this is great. So I said, yes, let's go. And we became homies. We became good friends. And, here we are. And, he's an inspiration, man. Like when I get, discouraged, I just think of Karl, and I'm like, all right, Karl wouldn't give up on this, or Karl's got it. Karl inspires me, and he's just a joy to work with, man. So that's how we got involved in it. Man, it's been a pleasure and so much fun to work with Karl so far. So,
no, that's great. That's awesome, Karl. What do you think about what Ray just said right there?
I mean, I'm glad I have his endorsement. This is not something that I can do on my own, But what I want everyone else to think about is that when you decide to collaborate for a common vision, and you put your brains together and your feet together and your arms together, and you all get synchronized, kind of like in the military, I guess, but in regular life, you put your stuff all on the same wavelength, you can get a lot done. Like if I just sat here and said, I'm going to go try and take these kids fishing. If I just ran my format with just my small team, I might touch 2,000, maybe 3,000 kids, but that's going to be a grind. But then when I bring on another partner like Ray, or bring on Matt Wilkie in the Ardent Outdoor Group, or I bring on Tony Dahlberg with Future Anglers, and I start getting these other guys on this thing, the lift becomes a little lighter, and the outcome and the output becomes much higher. And so that's the real victory, is not only for the collaboration from all of us nonprofits that are doing some of this great work, but the collaboration with all the teachers in the classrooms. Like if the teachers aren't interested in this, we've got nothing to talk about. So I'm just want to share credit where it's due. Wherever people want to collaborate, special outcomes happen.
So let me ask you this, and Ray, I want to come back to you if we have time to talk about some of your future plans with Baztec with this funding and everything too. But I want to just stay with Karl for just a second. When you've talked to teachers, have you ran into any people that say, nah, that's not for us, or what other roadblocks have there been out there for you?
Some of it's just the education of it. Like they don't like, I have to really lay it out there like, hey, I'll have a heated house for everyone, just understanding what the format looks like. And then also that there's a lesson behind this whole thing before we even go, and some teachers in schools are they're green lighters. They're like, let's do this, let's make this work. And then others that are the teachers, they are all for it. That we put dates together, and then they run it up their chain of command, and then there's somebody somewhere that goes, that's not something we can approve. And so I'm trying to find ways when there's a disapproval from somewhere in the chain to find other partners. And so in some cases, I work with the local city park and rec program and with Ray and Matt and everybody, and we're setting up a date for some of those students that may have thought they were going to get the experience, and then it kind of got yanked back. And so now we're going to find another day on a federal holiday. MLK will have some programming, and President's Day will have some programming. So, you give me a barrier, I'll show you a ladder. You give me a wall, I'll give you a bigger ladder. So I try to knock away and get some of these things out of the way, just so that the outcome happens. Maybe it's not a traditional school day thing, but it's on a federal holiday or something else. But I want to kind of reduce all the barriers, because some kids have land barriers. They're not even near a lake. Some kids have equipment barriers. They don't have any equipment. Some don't have any in their family who's ever done any of this stuff. And so there's a lot of barriers that are already in play. And some of us, in Minnesota live on lakes, and we have that every day. But there's some that don't, and there's a lot that don't, and a lot that don't get the experience even if they live by the lake. So the more barriers we can reduce, and the more opportunity we have to create a future generation of land and water stewards that take these things seriously and want to keep the lakes clean and want to do all the right things that way,
So if you accomplish 10,000 kids this year, will you do it again next year, or grow?
Well, in my exit surveys, I'm going to ask these teachers, hey, would you like this as an annual tradition for your classroom? And if there's an resounding amount of yeses, then okay, we've got our work cut out for us. Now how many more partners can we bring on? How many other events can we do? And how many, I really hope to provide really great experiences for all these kids in all these classrooms and unforgettable memories. And then if the teachers are like super happy with the product, okay, well, let's build on it. Let's get more of this going. Let's work on getting your school maybe some of the gear, and you can host this independently with your own families or something in the future. Some of that stuff to think about.
So are you looking for sponsors or funders, or have you tried LCCMR or any grant money or anything else like that? Or is there a pitch for anybody out there that's listening or watching and says, I want to be a part of this, I want to help out, what can I do? What do you tell them?
We were really looking for some fiscal sponsors more than anything else. I mean, we have most of the equipment, and there's going to be some propane burn and some bait burn and some tackle and stuff. But really, when you're looking at the overall project scope for this thing, there's really going to be about 12 of us dedicating our next 2 months of working life. And there's probably over 3,000 hours of labor into this thing, which the reason this is going to take that kind of labor is because it can't be volunteer driven. I have people all the time that will say, hey, I'll come volunteer, and they'll come help for a day, and they're awesome, and I love volunteers. But if I say, hey, can you come do this for 30 days straight, they tell me to get lost. So that's why we're really looking for funding for the for Baztec and for the Art and Outdoor Group, and maybe some of the other partnering nonprofits, so we have the labor capital to keep enough capital to keep the labor there to keep this thing running. That's really it. So I mean, if anybody write off at the end of the year, this project is just begging for it.
So how do they reach you? Where do we find out more information about this?
Right now, Ray's got a fundraiser published, a Facebook link. If anybody could contribute to that would be amazing. And I think Ray can share that. There it is. It's on Facebook. And that's going to help offset, like I said, the labor for this, for all of our partners here to do this. Otherwise, like if anybody wants to collaborate on this, my email is Karl, Karl, at Elpis, ELPIS, Enterprises, ENTERPRISES.org. They can get involved that way. Send me an email. Let's collaborate. The more hands we put on this project, the lighter the lift. Hopefully, the weather this year is looking great. The schools they're getting ready. They're getting their buses figured out. And one of the other barriers, one of the schools said we don't have the bus funding. And so I asked them, I said, well, hey, if what's your quote for that bus cost? And then who would somebody make that check out to? And so I'm asking those questions so that if there is somebody out there that's like, hey, this school wants to go, but their problem is the bus funds, hey, maybe I could find a donor for that individual school. That's another way of getting rid of a barrier,
Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing, I think, just figuring out what the barriers are and finding ways around them. So I applaud the efforts of you guys. And Ray, we just have about a minute and a half here, but you're obviously thankful to be a part of this event. I'm sure this effort, I should say, and with this newfound funding from LCCMR, and you don't have to break down specifics or anything, but what are the goals with some of this funding that, what are you going to try to accomplish with it?
Yeah, what we want to do with on the nonprofit side with the LCCMR opportunity that we received is to take 12 to 14 adults, BIPOC adults, and show them the basics and fundamentals of fishing and hunting both. And we love working with children. That's I learned that throughout even being as a kid. However, one thing that we've learned, like doing this work, is kids love doing outdoor stuff, but kids can't drive, can't buy a license, can't buy a lot of things. Hey, Dad, I'll be right back. Do you mind if I take the truck and go fishing, Dad? 11-year-olds can't do that. 12-year-olds can't do that. So what we try to do with this LCCMR opportunity is present this and train and facilitate opportunities for adults, so adults can learn the basics and fundamentals of both fishing and hunting, and they can use those particular skills to take their families out fishing and hunting. And that's something that really hasn't we haven't seen a program like that in a long time. So that's something that we're not reinventing a wheel, but it's just a different kind of wheel.
We can't forget about the adults and introducing adults as well into the outdoors. All right, Ray, where can we find out more about Baztec?
Yeah, I mean, if folks want to learn more, you can go to Baztec.org. That's our nonprofit organization. And if you're willing to donate funding, equipment, anything like that, please email us. Again, you can reach me at ray@baztecfo.org.
Very cool. All right. Well, this segment brought to you by Tasman Lake Lodge. Trophy lake trout, northern pike fishing in scenic northwest Saskatchewan is waiting for you. I know you're thinking about ice fishing. We're thinking about big lake trout and maybe new personal best pike like Dan caught. And you can watch his new pike video or our latest Tasman TV episode on the Tasman Lake Lodge YouTube channel, or go to tasmanlake.com for all the details on how you can get up for maybe a new personal best lake trout and northern pike in northwest Saskatchewan. Such a cool place. All right, Ray Ruiz and Karl Erickson, 10,000 new kids ice fishing this winter is the effort, along with everything else that you guys are doing. Urban Ice Anglers and Baztec. Good luck with everything. Keep us up to date on what's happening, and thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Let's check back in at the end of February or January and see where our head count is. Maybe then come back in February and maybe we can have a recap on how it went. Maybe we got there, maybe we didn't, but we're going to put every foot forward to work on it anyway.
Let's plan for it. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Joe Henry has a Lake of the Woods report, and we come back on Sporting Journal Radio.
Lake of the Woods, the walleye capital of the world, is calling out to you. From the Northwest Angle to the South Shore and Rainy River, this is the Midwest's #1 ice fishing destination. Walleyes, sauger, perch, northern pike, and eelpout. The fishing on Lake of the Woods is like a world of its own. Experience the most amazing fishing through one of the many full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper fish house options. For more information, go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
All right, time to head up to Lake of the Woods to check in with Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism to talk about the big old walleye capital. Joe, I can't believe we're already at the end of the year, Joe.
Isn't that something? Can you believe it?
It's going quick.
Yeah.
And I know the official early ice time is maybe in the rearview mirror, unless you're up at the Northwest Angle. Maybe then this is kind of early ice-ish. Maybe for those guys up there, I feel like
it's not really early ice, because you know what, they have as thick, if not thicker, ice up there in many places. But you know what it is just traditionally, like the red fox ice fishing normally gets going a little bit before Christmas, and But traditionally, they open up the ice fishing up there about December 26th. At least a lot of the ice fishing resorts do, just because that's tradition and that's when they start. And I'll tell you what, it's kind of an interesting thing, because when you go to the Northwest Angle, you go out, if you're going to stay on the mainland up in the Angle Inlet at the resorts up there, the ice fishing resorts, well, then you drive right to your resort. Now, if you're going to go to one of the island resorts, you go through like Young's Bay Resort and Jerry's Restaurant. There's an ice road there that's plowed, and you take that ice road right to the island resort that you're staying. Now, you don't fish off that ice road. That ice road is only to drive to your island resort, and then once you get to the island resort, when they take you out fishing, they do it with bombardiers. Everybody uses bombardiers up there. So they got their day houses out on different structure up at the northwest angle amongst the islands, and then they take you out to their fish house in the morning, just like they would on the south end if you're going in a bomber. They take you out in the morning, they check on you throughout the day, and then when it starts getting dark out, they pick you up and they bring you back in just in time for a happy hour. Just like down in the south end, they clean your fish for you. If you want to have a fish fry, and if you're staying at a place with a restaurant, they certainly will cook your fish up for you. It's interesting, Bret, up at the angle, I think there's a higher percentage of walleyes caught throughout your day. And you get some saugers and perch and pike and eel pout and stuff like that too. You get a few more walleyes up at the angle, I think, proportionally compared to the south end, just because the south end, a lot of times you're fishing that great big basin, that big mud bowl with different areas of structure popping out of it. Up at the northwest angle, there's a lot more rock. It's a Canadian shield. It's where the islands begin, and consequently, with that more structure, there's just a higher percentage of walleyes.
Do you think the proximity to the river has anything to do with the sauger population down the south end?
It could. It could. I'm not sure, but I just know that base, saugers are a deeper water fish, and they love that basin, and they're really good at not only feeding on minerals and things, but also eating stuff coming out of the mud, and it's just where they like to live. The northwest angle also has basins of mud too. I mean, a lot of times you'll be targeting rock reefs. Sometimes you're on the edge of one. Sometimes you're just off the mud, off of a rock reef up there. So they have their mud too, don't get me wrong, and they got a lot of saugers, but it's just a little bit different up there. You've been up there with me before ice fishing. I know you have, and it's just a cool feeling. When you go to the angle, that's that they call it an exclave. An exclave meaning that you actually have to travel through Canada in order to reach back into the United States. So, as you know, Bret, when you drive up there, you actually have to drive about 40 miles through Canada. So, and then you re-enter into the United States up at the angle. So you need a passport. You need a passport card. You can use an enhanced driver's license, or you can use an original birth certificate combined with a government-issued ID like a driver's license. Now, if you have anybody in your party that might have had a felony or maybe a DUI, you can't get through Canada with that. But don't worry, there's another way. Number one, we have what's called the Lake of the Woods Passenger Service. That's a bombardier service that take you from the south end of the lake all the way across Lake of the Woods, keeping you in Minnesota, up to your favorite Northwest Angle Ice Fishing Resort. The second option, is taking you up and snowmobiling up. So, number one, if you have your own sleds, you can follow the state-made groomed staked trail from the south end of Lake of the Woods all the way up to the Northwest Angle Resorts. If you don't have your own snowmobiles, right now, one of the companies we have up here called Escape Boat Rentals. Escape Boat Rentals. They now have, starting this year, they have brand new snowmobiles for rent. So you can rent a snowmobile, and you can snowmobile on the trails down here. You can snowmobile up to the Northwest Angle. I mean, heck, some people, they'll take that. It's about a 40-mile run or so, give or take. But they'll take that 40-mile run up and have lunch up there and just see the area a little bit, and they'll come back the same day. No big deal. I mean, just really a neat experience. Well, Bret, we've done it.
We've done it. And, Joe, one thing, though, this is the only problem with it. If you do that and you take the snowmobile trail up, I mean, it was really neat. There was these giant ice shards coming out of the lake when we did it. It felt like you were in the dark crystal. It was really cool. And it's an experience that everybody that rides a snowmobile in Minnesota should do. Even if you're not going to fish, it's a trail you should ride in Minnesota. But then you don't get to stop in Sprague to get an O. Henry bar or ketchup potato chips if you're into that sort of thing.
Well, and that is a little hidden secret. So if you drive up to Lake of the Woods, you stop in that little town of Sprague, Manitoba, and there's a little grocery store on the right-hand side called Karl and Kay's Fine Foods. It's almost like a pole shed. You stop there, and now you can get things that you can't get in Minnesota or in the United States. You get things like that famous Canadian, they call it Canadian rye bread. It's almost like a cracked wheat, almost like a St. John's bread. Really good. It's made in the Winnipeg bakeries, which are really well known for good bread. You can get your Canadian jams. different kind of berries up there, different brands of jam. You get your different kind of chips, ketchup chips, everything chips, roasted chicken chips, sour cream red pepper chips. I mean, just different flavors we can't get. It's kind of like when in Rome, do as the Romans, you know. And then you get
Joe,
the candy bars.
Hang on. Yeah, well, Dan will tell you all about the candy bars because he's had all
Dan,
of them.
What candy bars are there?
Wonder Bar is the best.
Wonder Bar is pretty good.
Mr. Big Bar is pretty good one.
Yeah.
There's Caramilk. That's all right.
Yeah, okay.
There's the Macintosh bar that I thought I was going to have to go to the dentist after because I didn't realize it was going to be rock solid caramel.
It was hard, yeah.
And I tried to bite into it. What else we got?
Coffee
There's
Crisp.
Coffee Crisp, which actually I think if you go to Dairy Queen, you can get an off-brand Coffee Crisp Blizzard right now in the United States.
Are O. Henry's? Those are here too, aren't they?
I don't remember. I
can't remember if they're U.S. too, but those are pretty solid.
Joe Henry should know where an O. Henry is.
So we also
they
got
all over the United States. It's a national.
It is, okay. But we got roasted chicken Lay's or potato chips of some sort. And Corey
Old Dutch?
I don't think they were Old Dutch.
They were Lay's.
I think they were Lay's. But Corey Loeffler crumpled them up and used them to season our buffalo heads that we shot at the Northwest Angle a couple of years ago.
And remember when we stayed on the South Shore with him, he cooked mallard in mayo?
Yeah.
So can he, is he incapable of going to Lake of the Woods and cooking things with proper ingredients?
Well, he just finds things that you have on hand and he makes it work. And they were both delicious.
Amazing.
Of course, when we had that mallard, it was like
pretty late.
1 a.m.
It was pretty late in the night. So, but it's good. And then we caught a bunch of walleyes the next day.
Yeah. And
well, if you remember when we did this Sporting Journal 500 in the spring, in the spring you can't keep walleyes and you couldn't keep the sturgeon at that time. So the only thing we could keep was suckers. So we kept that sucker. And I'll tell you what, he cooked that sucker in the oven. And when that sucker came out, of course, maybe it's because you guys are drinking so many Busch Lights, but I'll tell you, that sucker went fast.
Late in the night.
Yeah.
Late in the night.
It was pretty good. I mean, that just goes to show, we've talked about it 100 times, that you can make things, raccoon or what, beaver, you can make things taste good if you know what you're doing and know how to process it and cook it right and use mayonnaise or lots of butter or something, I don't know, and roasted chicken potato chips, I guess.
Salt and butter, they make everything better.
That's right. So
when you're heading up there, so what happens is when you go up there, there's a Canada Border Services normal check-in station at the border. When you go in, they check in, and they check your passport, what do you have with you, blah 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 blah, and then you get through and you start driving through Canada. You stop at Carl K's on the way up in Sprague, but then when you get up to the Northwest Angle, they call it an unmanned border. There's no check-in station up there. So you enter the U.S., and what you can do is you can go to your resort. All the resorts now have iPads. So you can order your favorite beverage or check in, whatever. And then what you do is you jump on that iPad. It takes you 5 minutes. You check in with U.S. Customs, and you'll get the big green button that says approved. And then you're good to go. Now, when you go home, you're going to stop at Jim's Corner. Jim's Corner is a place up there where it's right at the top of that road.
Dan is on top of it today. Sorry, Joe. Don't mean to interrupt you.
He's the man. Nice. You see that little shack there where they got a phone there that says Canada, and you pick up the Canada phone and you press the button and you say hello, bonjour, hello Canada Border Services, how may I help you? And say, hey, I'm at the Northwest Angle. I want to check in because we're going to be driving back down to either Warroad or Roselle, and whichever way you're coming from. And they say, great, how many people in your vehicle? What's your license plate number? And okay, we have a check-in number for you. Do you have a pen and paper to write it down? You write the check-in number in case you get stopped on the way down, and away you go. And then when you get down there, you'll hit U.S. Customs when you get the U.S. border, and they'll check you in as well. So once you do it once or twice, it's nothing. But at first, that's how you do it, and yeah, that's pretty easy. They've really streamlined the process.
Well, looking forward to getting back up to the Angle to do some ice fishing this winter. Joe, we've got something in the works that you'll hear more about here on this show coming up in the future. Can't wait. We might have to spend some time on the South Shore when we're up there too, or the Rainy or something. Duh. Maybe do some sturgeon fishing with the Dutchman. Well, I'll shave. I'll do a mustache. You guys
coming up for a month or what?
Might as well.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah, exactly.
Heck yeah. If you want to do that niche stuff, so you want to do the sturgeon on the Rainy River, you want to probably fish some monster pike on the south end. Yes. You probably want to get up to the Northwest Angle and do the traditional walleye and sauger fishing. Yep. Maybe you want to go to the Northwest Angle and slide over into Ontario and do the famous big crappies. If you want, you can have a Northwest Angle guide you take you by snow machine, and they could take you all the way over to Whitefish Bay, and you could catch lake trout. I mean, there are so many things you can do in the winter up here. And, when you're in the south end, we got to make sure that we hit the 2 ice bars. We got to hit the Igloo Bar out in front of Zipple Bay Resort. Then we got to hit the Angry Walleye out in front of Cyrus. The other thing we need to do is, now that Flag Island is owned by Cyrus, Cyrus's reputation for food. We got to have dinner there. We got to go to Jerry's, have dinner. We got to have Sportsman's Oak Island. Sunset Lodge has dinner up there, bar and restaurant. I mean, we got some work we got to do, you guys. We got to hit the northernmost point buoy. We got some things we got to do.
So, Joe, we're going to come up there, and we're going to go to one of the ice bars, and we're going to do it right before we go sturgeon fishing with the Dutchman. And you're going to grow a mustache, and then on the ice bar, we're going to shave my beard into a handlebar mustache before we go ice fishing. And it's going to be the sturgeon stash trip. Are you guys on board or what?
I got a couple ideas first off. First things first. You know what? If I need to grow a mustache, we should maybe plan this trip for next winter. That's number one. Number two, I can only imagine Danny eating those chips from Canada. I mean, he must have a hard... Between those and the candy bar,
he's still eating them.
The job that does on his mustache.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to go with some hourly maintenance there. Keep her clean, brush your teeth, brush everything out.
Flavor saver.
Yeah, it's just we didn't even touch on the Canadian root beer. A&W root beer is like a different breed up there.
Is that really?
It is. I don't know what it is. I don't know what they do.
It's the paper straws, I think is what it is.
No,
that might be the problem.
You just killed the mood. We're riding high, and you just shot her down.
All right, Joe, we got lots of plans to make. We're going to let you get back to the festivities up there. If people want to get a trip planned to the Angle or anywhere on Lake of the Woods, maybe do some snowmobiling, some fishing, whatever, what should they do?
Hey, best place, our website, lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
All right. Happy New Year, Joe. Happy New Year, Dan. Happy New Year to all of you watching and listening. Thank you for tuning into Sporting Journal Radio.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.